How important is it to have your own LinkedIn page and your company page, or should you combine them? What should you do there?
Yeah, you need to have a company page, but people don't engage with company pages. But people will check out your company page. They're going to see how many employees you have. Do you have any employees? Where are they located? And they may check out a few of your most recent posts. So for social proof, that important, psychological concept, it's important to have a company page. But really the action, the engagement you get is with your personal profile, because people engage with people, not logos.
How much do you see putting out articles, posts, blogs versus ads?
Salespeople are not content creators, right? Don't have time for that stuff. I totally get that, and I would never expect that. I do think it is important to have content, even if it's a photo. When I do these social selling training, I'll find pictures that people post just from like company events. People love that stuff, right? They love to see you having fun. It gives you social proof that you have clients that you're having fun with. I do believe that those who post content yield influence. When we look at the definition of an influencer, even if you just post once a month, and even if it's something just trivial, it is a way that you get mind share. People in your network might see it. People outside of your network might see it. It might get some comments, some shares. That is really the best way to ensure that you're getting the most out of LinkedIn. And if you don't publish any content, it's okay, but your mileage is just going to be a lot less. So don't think you have to publish every day, and don't think you need to write a freaking blog post, because you don't.
And now the man you've been waiting for, John, the sales machine, Rankins.
Ladies and gentlemen, today's guest, Neal Schaffer, is a globally recognized digital marketing consultant, speaker, and educator who bridges the gap between marketing and sales. As the author of 6 acclaimed books, including Digital Threads and Maximizing LinkedIn for Business Growth, he's empowered countless CEOs and entrepreneurs with actionable strategies in social selling, influencer marketing, and content creation. He also hosts the popular Your Digital Marketing Coach podcast, where he breaks down the latest trends and delivers real-world solutions that drive measurable growth. Tune in to learn how to harness cutting-edge marketing techniques and elevate your business. Let's welcome him to the show. Welcome, Neal.
Thank you so much, John.
Well, this is going to be an absolute blast. You told me a little bit about your background and how you're unlike Fluffy. So, there's a lot of fluff out there, and I want to dive deep into that. And I know about your background, but a lot of people don't, as a business development manager and or, the head of sales in Southeast Asia at several different companies. Tell me about how you've pivoted from actually being an expert in sales and doing enterprise level technical sales and getting into marketing.
Yeah, well, it's a great story that's completely organic. We never plan our lives in that way, but I found myself at a semiconductor company that was headquartered in Kyoto, Japan, that I was lucky to get a job at immediately graduating from university here in the United States. So first 15 years of my career in Japan, I helped them really launch their China sales office. We started our first office in Shanghai, and we added Beijing, Tianjin, had a factory in Dalian, for those that know the Chinese territory. So selling semiconductors to consumer electronic manufacturers, industrial equipment, cell phones, TVs, the whole range. That then moved into, after being there for 9 years and realizing I had a great track record in China, but I didn't have one in Japan, I then moved over to an American company that was selling embedded software. So this would be paired with consumer electronics. They were called Wind River. They were subsequently bought up by Intel after I had left the company, really selling to the same sorts of manufacturers, but this time in Japan. And then I moved over to a startup from Ottawa, Canada that specialized in embedded software, but this was middleware at the application level, focused really on IPTV, the early days of internet TV. So my first client was Sony, got into their DVR device. And in 2 years, generated 25% of our sales from nothing out of Asia. A lot of experience on the sales and really developing business from scratch. And, it was really the developing business from scratch where it was a lot of obviously relationship building, but it was also partnerships. It was storytelling. It wasn't going off the slide deck that the American corporate headquarters was sending us, but really developing our own rapport and our own branding and our own ways of localizing really what we were selling to the local markets and the local people and the local way they do business. So that is really this holistic business experience that I have with sales that, I moved back to the United States after I married my wife in Japan and we had a baby, decided to raise her here in the US. And I was looking for a job for the first time. This is back in 2007 and 8. So I got really heavily into LinkedIn because I realized it was an amazing business tool. And back then, most people just, they only said, I only use it for my personal. I only connect with people I've known for a long time, or everybody had their own little policies. And I saw it as this amazing potential as a business tool. So started blogging about it, got a job in network management software. The company went under major restructuring with the Lehman Brothers crash in November of 2008. So 3.5 months after I was hired, I was let go. And that's where I just went full force into beginning with LinkedIn, writing a book, started to speak about it. And then I got all these consulting opportunities, and they were companies that just didn't know what to do with social media. So really the demand at the beginning was marketing. And that's where I really transitioned into becoming more of a social media marketer, although I was still applying, LinkedIn and social media to sales. We call that social selling now. But yeah, over the last 15 years, that's what I've been doing, a variety of consulting, training, writing books, teach at a few universities. And it's all revolved around just this unique view I have of the world from that experience doing sales and biz dev in Asia. So it's a combination of marketing, it's sales, it's social selling, it's personal branding. To me, it's all influencer marketing. To me, it's all one world, right? When I hear people talk about influencer marketing, I think of those ecosystem partners we had, the system integrators that were always bringing in the leads. Man, those are my influencers, right? That was my influencer marketing back in the days. So to me, it's one world, and hopefully I can provide a unique perspective, and the listeners can just get a new look on things they may have already heard about before.
Yeah, I love that. And how important do you think it is having, this is a lot about branding and marketing and you intertwining it with how sales works. How important is it to have a personal brand as well as a company brand, right? Or a corporate brand? Is that important? Is that really a thing?
Yeah, it's a thing. And, we all have them. Now, I remember one deal I did. This is with a major consumer electronics manufacturer, with the head of R&D. And the VP of sales at corporate at the time said, Neil, the only reason that you got this deal was that this guy liked you. There's just no other way that you could have gotten this deal at this amount with this company, with this guy in this position for our technology, right? So at the end of the day, we do business with people we know, like, and trust, right? And this is even before social media. So people have a perception of you. My favorite definition of personal branding is one that it is attributed to Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon, who said it's what people say about you when you're not in the room, right? So are you likable? Do people like you? Do your customers, do they want to reach out to you? Do they want to call you back for a second visit? Do they want to listen to your opinion on something when they're in trouble? Whatever that is, right? That is part of your branding. And really, when I talk about personal branding, it starts with the offline, and then how do you translate to the online? Most salespeople I know have robust personal brands. They're well liked. They carry themselves well. They talk well. They socialize well. How do we translate that online? And if you can do that, then really you open up the keys to the kingdom of scaling your branding from just the people that know you offline to potential new clients, new partners that can meet you online.
Yeah, I always come from service. I love helping people. So that for sales for me is a good time, right? Where some people cringe about selling, but I see it as, this is something I'm doing for you. It's not something I'm doing to you. So like, you know, what what challenges do you have? I'm like a curious little boy when I hear about your problems. And I I'm not going to say it's the man in me, but that's the masculinity in me that I want to solve a problem, right? It's just natural. How do
Yeah,
you?
you want to add value. I'm the same way. I mean, we all want to leave this world a little bit better place than we had before. And even if I can't help the client directly with my own products and services, if I can introduce them or him or her to someone that can, that's a win-win-win, right? They're going to be happy, and then the partner is going to be happy. And at the end of the day, this bank account of karma, you're going to accumulate some good karma. And I've always been a believer in that.
100%. I 100% agree. Uh, and I don't, I have no time for, you know, burning bridges or anything. I mean, I've had so many different people that have retired from my company, believe it or not, 25 years, and they retired and stayed with me that long. But then I've had other people that gone on to other opportunities, found out it wasn't as good, and they've actually come back. And and or repeat business as an example of that. So, Neil, let's talk about, you're an expert on LinkedIn as well, not just the social and the marketing. How important is it to have your own LinkedIn page and your company page, or should you combine them? What should you do there?
Yeah, well, I mean, it obviously depends on your role. So if you are an entrepreneur that's listening, you're a small business owner, yeah, you need to have a company page, but just know that you're not going to get any traction with the company page. It just people don't engage with company pages. But people will check out your company page if you represent a company. If you're trying to sell a product or service from a company, they're going to go to your company page. They're going to see how many employees you have. Do you have any employees, right? Where are they located? And they may check out a few of your most recent posts. So for social proof, that important, psychological concept, it's important to have a company page. But really the action, the engagement you get is with your personal profile, because people engage with people, not logos. And there's certain things a company page can't do that a personal profile can do when it comes to openly connecting and engaging with people. So that's where really your focus should absolutely be on your personal profile.
All right. And how much do you see, putting out articles, posts, blogs versus ads to help drive new leads, new opportunities?
Yeah, I mean, salespeople are not content creators, right? I mean, don't have time for that stuff. So I totally get that, and I would never expect that. But I do think that, if we sort of dumb it down, there might have been, hey, I was asked this by a client, and this is how I responded. Or I'm finding a lot of clients with this challenge. This is how my company helps them. Little thoughts like that, the conversations they probably have with their bosses or in their company with their staff. Those are little tidbits that you could throw out there as content without having to write a full-fledged blog post. I do think it is important to have content, even if it's a photo. When I do these social selling trainings, I'll find pictures that people post just from like company events, or hey, today is Friday and this is, I had a great breakfast with my clients, or I'm golfing with these clients. People love that stuff, right? They love to see you having fun. And if your clients are okay with you posting it, it gives you social proof that you have clients that you're having fun with. And maybe other clients may want to play golf with you as well when they see that post. So I do believe that those who post content yield influence, right? When we look at the definition of an influencer, any online influencer, they publish content, and that's how they build their following and their engagement. So really, even if you just post once a month, and even if it's something just trivial, it is a way that you get mind share. People in your network might see it. People outside of your network might see it. It might get some comments, some shares. That is really, the best way to ensure that you're getting the most out of LinkedIn. And if you don't publish any content, it's okay, but your mileage is just going to be a lot less. You're going to get a lot less mind share, engage with a lot fewer people compared to others that might be publishing content, including competitors in your own industry, right? So, don't think you have to publish every day, and don't think you need to write a freaking blog post, because you don't. But just a little thought, a little photo. If you can include customers in your content, that is absolutely ideal. If you get their permission, if you go out for dinner with them, why not, right? Obviously, you want to talk, mention something intelligent in the caption, but those sorts of things, some people complain that LinkedIn's become too much like Facebook, but I think if you're in sales, you can use that to your advantage. It has become a little bit more casual, and you can publish content like that, which I think will only, add value to your clients, add value to your prospects, and to your personal brand. So that would be the way that I look at it.
Yeah. And so for companies just starting out, for startups and or companies that have been around a while, but they really haven't focused on driving engagement with LinkedIn, what would your approach be to actually generate followers or reach out to people? Because, in the early days of LinkedIn, there was no limitations. I mean, people could literally add thousands of people a day,
Right.
and you have like 50,000 followers. I have over, I think 11,000, very modest. I mean, but it's more than the average. But how would you suggest people grow that? And, or are there any kind of hacks that they can use that are legit, that, with integrity, to reach out and build an audience?
Yeah. So, and my apologies for only answering part of your question when it comes down to lead generation, because, the publishing your own content is only part of that. But when it comes down to acquiring followers, it does come down to the content. People, they see your content because they found it in a search, or if one of your connections likes it or shares it, they will often see in the news feed, so and so liked this post or so and so commented on this post. So content, I believe, is the key to acquire more followers. But it also comes down to your own engagement. You liking and commenting on other people's posts so that you're seen, right? And that inevitably, LinkedIn has hinted at this with the way the algorithm works, is they don't want people who just come to LinkedIn and publish content. They want people who participate as well. And the way the algorithm works is, when you engage with someone and they like your comment, there's a greater chance they're going to see your content in their feed the next time you publish content. So engagement actually helps you. But there's also a bit of reaching out to new people, right? You should always, ABP, always be prospecting. So it's doing searches, it's finding people, finding prospects. I wouldn't, immediately send them the connection request and then send them an email the next day. I think we're sort of over that and people can see through that. But I think it's genuinely, like you said, adding value, finding people, looking at their posts, following them to send them this little notification that says you follow them. Maybe some people will check out your profile, and then generally engaging with their content, right? If you're truly serving, there's probably a way that you can comment if they're creating content that gives you a way to start a conversation with them to sort of break the ice. And maybe after one or two comments, especially if they like one of your comments, maybe they will send you an invite to request, or you can invite them to request, right? And in such a way, if you're always engaging on a daily basis, you don't have to be publishing content on a daily basis. But if you're engaging and every day you're finding a few new people to follow and maybe one new person to send an invite, connection request to, that is how over time, if you consistently do this, right? Every work day, every business day of the year, if you consistently do that, I guarantee you're going to be building a larger and larger following over time.
Yeah. And have you ever experienced a time when like your sales pipeline totally dried up, and or you worked with clients that their sales pipelines is dried up? And what do you do strategically or tactically to revive your clients or generate more leads?
Well, I think there's two things, right? One is, can you generate new leads from your current clients? And that is a matter of keeping in better touch with them. So if you haven't been in touch with them, and obviously part of this is we're just talking about LinkedIn, but there's a lot you can do outside of LinkedIn, like pick up the phone and give them a call, right? So I'm assuming that you've been doing that regularly, but obviously, showing up in their feed, commenting on their posts is a way to once again build mind share, remind them that you're there without having to call them. Right. Let's say you only call like once a quarter. You could be doing this if they publish once a week. You could be showing up on a weekly basis to remind them that you're there. Another one is you can message them on LinkedIn. You can also send them an email, obviously. So there's different ways of communicating with your current customers to remind them that you're there. If you're having a special, if you're having a new product, if you have a new angle on something that you can make an introduction to, that's one way to develop new leads from your current clients. As far as new clients go, this comes down to prospecting, right? Using the LinkedIn search filters. Everything I talked about, you don't need LinkedIn Sales Navigator to do. Although LinkedIn Sales Navigator does allow you to sort of save search filters and tag people, what have you, but always, going in there, looking for new prospects, following them, trying to engage with their content, I call it this pyramid of engagement, or, developing a relationship through engagement on social media to try to somehow get to a point where you can make the connection request, where you can send them a message and have a conversation to see if they might be ready for what you have to offer. I think also, in terms of lead generation, there's interesting things like, webinars or ebooks or things that you can promote using advertising. And my apologies for not getting back to you there, but using advertising to promote something in parallel to everything else that says, hey, we're doing an event. We're doing, an open company house. We're doing a webinar. We're going to be at this event as a way, once again, to add to your prospecting. And this comes down, you may have a marketing team that's doing this, but if you're a small business owner, you may have to do this yourself. That's also obviously a best practice to do. And you won't want to stop with LinkedIn. You could be doing the same thing on Facebook. But if you're going to run an ad, you want to run it towards something where you can measure the ROI of it. And if it's, getting some seats in the room, whether it's physical or virtual, and generating leads from there, and then calculating, the actual estimated customer lifetime value of the attendees compared to your ad spend, I think that's a really, really smart way to spend money and to promote what you're doing on LinkedIn and in social media.
Yeah. And how do you balance like There's a lot of automation tools out there, and automation is key to scale. Obviously, I mean, doing everything on your own, unless you have a team, right? There's a lot of automated tools out there for follow-ups and different things. How do you balance the human engagement to ensure that, things really connect with your audience? And or is it one at a time?
In all honesty, I don't use those automated tools because vis-a-vis LinkedIn, I know people that have been kicked off the platform and have had to start over because they use them. So I know that, there are people that use them and they're really successful with them. And I also know of other people that run into issues, right? And LinkedIn is always trying to crack down on those. So I will never recommend that you use those because it's really hard to automate human communication, as your question referred to, like how do we humanize all of that? And I believe in my book on LinkedIn, it's like a playbook. It's like, hey, can you spend 15 minutes a day, right, going through and engaging with X number of people, sending out X number of messages, doing these follow-ups? I would rather follow that approach because I think it is scalable enough. I think that there's only so much communication you can have at one time anyway to be able to treat everybody with the time and energy that you need. So I just take a different approach. And I think that doing it this way, and maybe if 15 minutes a day, you do 30 minutes, there is a lot you can get done when you understand who your prospect is, how you communicate with them. You have this like funnel of, okay, I'm first going to find them. I'm going to follow them. I'm going to look for content. I'm going to, in my feed every day, I'm going to search for these, 10 people at a time, 15 people at a time. That's always been my approach rather than the automation approach.
All right, I like it. But today,
yeah, but I will say where it's less automation, but we can use AI. And I know we haven't talked about that yet. We can use AI to copy and paste their profile. And so that when we do that follow-up, or like, we sort of feed their most recent content in, that we can sort of personalize using tools a lot quicker, right? So that we can be more effective at that follow-up communication. So that is one way. It's not necessarily automation, maybe semi-automation, but we definitely can use AI there. And I definitely would recommend doing that.
yeah, because in today's world, I mean, there's so many different choices for everybody, and from omni-channel marketing, whatever platform you're on. And I'll give a shout out to Super Benji. He's on my podcast. The founder was on my podcast, and that's exactly what they do. They use AI to figure out what content was posted omni-channel about that individual and what they're posting, what they're liking. And that just empowers you to understand who that individual is and do they resonate with you and do you want to do business? A lot of the times, for me, I would rather have quality over quantity, number one.
Mm.
And number two, I I don't want to work with the new guy. I don't. Some customers I'll turn away. They're just not ready. And even our platform and our software doesn't cater to somebody who has 5 people in their business. We're more of an enterprise level sale. But there's a lot of noise out there. How do you differentiate yourself and cut through all that clutter so that you can actually, add value and or stand out in the marketplace?
Yeah, I think it's really honing in, whether it's target customer, target persona, it's really making sure you're really locked in and talking to who that ideal target customer is. And I think a lot of it is the way you would engage in, think of your most successful sales engagements, the way you engage with customers, the things that you talked about, the stories, the differentiators. Those are the exact same things you should have in your own content, right? So if they were successful offline, they will be equally successful online. So I don't think it's a matter of being everything to everyone. I think it's a matter of really fine tuning your message and your content and just sticking to your guns with what works offline. That would be my recommendation.
I love it. I love it because offline still works big time.
Exactly. And that's why I think, I like to say new tools, old rules, right? Anybody listening to this, even if you're an absolute newbie to LinkedIn or social media, you're just translating what you're doing offline online. And I feel sorry for the social media marketers trying to teach entrepreneurs who have never done sales before of how to do this. And they treat social media as like this new thing, but it's not, right? It's just a reimagined old thing. It's the way I like to look at it. So if you keep that mindset, I think you'll do really well, and you'll be able to cut through the noise naturally compared to all the other people that, maybe they're using AI tools to scale their content creation, but it ends up being a lot of noise, shooting off their gun in all sorts of different directions, which is not going to help them and only adds to the noise. And I think it helps you when you're really focused on your messaging.
Hey, folks, if you're enjoying this episode and you're picking up what I'm putting down and what the guests are actually putting out there, do me a favor, like and comment what you liked about the episode, or even comment what would you like to hear, what topics would you like to hear in the future, because believe me, it matters. I read absolutely every single one of them, and I want to bring you more and more value to help companies scale so that we can grow this podcast to make a bigger difference. Now let's get back to the show. Yeah, so what's your methodology when you work with B2B companies? And is B2B different than B2C when you work with companies to generate leads?
Well, B2C, B2B obviously are going to be very different because B2B, normally there's a group of people that you need to convince in order to close a deal, just for starters. So the platforms that you use are going to be different. The content is obviously going to be different as well. B2C content tends to be visual in nature. B2B can't always be visual, as you can imagine. B2B is also more information focused, right? So in other words, when I was selling, the clients wanted the information, and I was selling before social media, before the web was as advanced as it is today. They wanted access to information, which we know more and more people have today. So with B2B, it's a more information-based, content-focused approach to social media. So more text, more video, not short form, dancing TikTok video, but more serious video. But it really is about, and then you have things like ABM or account-based management, where you're personalizing the approach for focusing on a few target large companies. So yeah, and you don't have any of that in B2C, but definitely the focus on information, the focus on understanding that 90% of the market is not in the market to buy today. Right? When it comes to B2B, I mean, we could say the same thing about B2C, but that sales cycle is just going to be much longer. So the need to nurture with information, with relationships over time, makes it just more of a long-term focus, information focus, so that regardless of where they are in the funnel, they'll be able to find the information they need to get to that next stage of the funnel. So that would be the key differentiator. And when it comes to the information, man, your marketing team has to be developing that. They should be listening to the salespeople, the biz dev people. What are they getting asked? What's the information they think they need to get that customer to that next stage of the funnel, and making sure they have it, right? Making sure they have it at their fingertips, making sure they're talking about it in social media. It's coming up in search engines. It's coming up in AI search when people search on ChatGPT. So that's the job of marketing, to be able to do that, right? And if I was sales, I'd really have these conversations in larger companies with your marketing team to make sure that they're creating that content.
Yeah, and in the form of what? Newsletters, forums, webinars, like what do you
Man.
find? Everything.
Because everybody's everywhere. The large language models are, the ChatGPT is sourcing content from everywhere these days. And 10 years ago, my answer might have been different. Yeah, so I wrote this book called Digital Threads, you see behind me here. And I have a very, very simple framework when it comes to digital marketing. It's search, email, social. And you need all three, because you need to become discoverable, because people do search. Although some people search on Google, some search on ChatGPT, some search on YouTube, some search on Apple Podcasts, right? So you need to have content to become discoverable. But what happens? They get to your website, they don't convert, they don't contact you. That's why you need to have a lead magnet. You need to have an email list. You need to be in constant communication with them, right? Using not just a newsletter, but also marketing automation, based on events that are triggered, to be able to communicate with them with the right information at the right time. And then you need social media. And, I look at social media more about developing relationships than pure lead generation. Although with advertising, you can do pure lead generation, but I want my salespeople all over social media every day, developing relationships, both with current customers and with prospects. So when you look at it that way, yeah, you sort of need to do all that, right? Webinar, as far as like lead magnet or lead generation devices, webinar is still, tried and true, right? There's other things you can do. You can do white papers, ebooks, physical events, lots of different things that you can do that you should be doing. You should have a whole annual calendar, so that, and then measuring what's working, what's not, and doubling down on the things that generate, more quality leads. But yeah, that is a modern digital marketing machine right there, doing everything that I just talked about.
Yeah, search, email, and social. And
Search,
it's
email.
yeah, and so that's a different way of looking at omni-channel. Most people talk about omni-channel being, you just got to be on every platform. You got to be everywhere. Unseen is unsold, right? And we've heard that. But ultimately, it's really the interaction that's going to drive the sale. And
Yeah,
it's about, and Jeffrey Gitomer was on the show, Little Red Book of Sales.
oh yeah.
He came up with know, like, and trust before the internet because he's 77, right? And if you go back and read his stuff, he came up with this stuff. Now, it's just like you said, old school, new rules, or how did you put it?
New tools, old rules.
New tools, old rules. I love that. New tools, old rules. Because I mean, even what Jeffrey said before is still legit today.
Amen.
Now, there's some hardcore strategies out there in boiler room type sales. The Wolf of Dog Street. Wait, it's the Wolf of Wall Street, right? So
Wolf of Wall
anyway,
Street,
I'll
right.
give them shit all day long. I don't care. Those old boiler room strategies don't work so much anymore. Actually, they do on low level individuals. But if you bring that approach to B2B business, you'll get slaughtered, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, back in the day when I did sales training, like books like Solution Selling, I mean, we're still doing that, right? There's certain things that even with social media, with the internet, we still need to do those things. They're really evergreen in nature.
Yeah. So let's talk about that omni-channel, not just the search, email, and social, because a lot of people say email is dead, right? I mean, it depends on where you're at and what part of the world, but there's disruptive marketers out there saying email is dead because they want to sell you on how to do email the right way, and or they're using disruptive marketing so that they can sell you on running ads. Everyone's got an agenda, and that's a fact. We all have an agenda. Mine is to serve. Mine is to serve and help people. But there's a lot of fluff and fluffy out there, right? Um, what do you think is the biggest mistakes that companies are making when doing marketing and prospecting?
Man, I think social media is one big area where they see it as an advertising platform, where they see it as just a pure lead generation platform. And don't get me wrong, I mean, we have to make sales, we have to make money, we have to generate business. But that approach leads to people tuning you out, right? Because there's an algorithm that stands in between you and your customers, your target customers. And with every self-promotional message, the ads don't necessarily hurt you in the algorithm per se, but with every, self-promotional advertising message that you send out in your organic feed, it just hurts the engagement of your future content. So you sort of shoot yourself in the foot. So that's definitely one thing that I see when it comes to that. I think on the content side, I'm a big fan of saying, hey, when I talked about that SES framework, the search, email, social, the search is, you want to get found. So you want to talk about things that people are actually looking for. So it's really having a locked in. I've seen B2B companies, they start these blogs, and the blogs are they talk about things that people aren't searching for, right? They're more like an email newsletter or like a company announcement. I'll be locking in on the things that people are actually searching for, using tools, understanding, keyword demand and things of that sort, and really offering not just like a cookie cutter content, but content that, once again, you would be providing your clients, right? I would not leave anything, off the table. I would be trying to create, answer every question that any potential client might have in a very, very comprehensive way, in a way that nobody else could, because you're the expert at whatever you're providing. On the email side, I think one of the biggest mistakes is either not having a regular newsletter to keep in regular communication at a good cadence, but also just, once again, the email should be communication. It should be something that people wants to read, something that people would be waiting to read on a weekly or bi-weekly or monthly basis. So you need to make it interesting and engaging. And I think, one of the reasons why a lot of people think email is dead, there's a lot of cold email software out there. I get tons of it every day. I'm sure you do as well, right? There's a lot of newsletters that I didn't sign up for this newsletter, or what the heck, this is just clutter. But can you provide something that people will really wait to read on a regular basis, right? To give them information that they can't find elsewhere. I mean, you need to find your own formula. So I think with each one of those things, and I call it the SES framework, search, email, social, because I wanted to dumb it down. This is my sales background, right? Dumb it down to make it easier for the people below me to be able to do their job. And there's so many choices. When we talk about omni-channel, as you referred to, there's just so many choices out there, but everything you do should be fitting into one of those three things, right? And I believe almost everything in omni-channel marketing does fit into one of those three things. So as long as you're equally hitting every one of those angles, you're doing okay. So it's less about being on Snapchat and TikTok as it is having a social strategy, right? Whether it is 100% LinkedIn, which is totally okay, or having a mixture of platforms. The important thing also is it's not just social. You still need to be discoverable, on search engines. You still need the content to be able to do that. And you still need to have the email and the marketing automation in place. So that's
Yeah.
my perspective on the world.
Well, and your perspective works. The old school, new rules. There's not new rules. It's old rules, new tools, right? What are some of the tools that you? Because I've used Answer the Public before for literally finding out what are people searching. Is there any other tools out there you can use?
Yeah, well, now we get into SEO tools. So there are three famous SEO tools. They're called SEMrush, Ahrefs, and Moz. I prefer a tool that's a little bit cheaper. Being the small business owner and entrepreneur that I am, it's called Uber Suggest. So I think for like 25 or 30 a month, the other tools start at like 100 a month. You can get access to the pretty similar keyword research. If someone is looking for, I don't know, embedded software, I can see what the average monthly search demand is for any keyword that includes those keywords, embedded software or just software, right? And I begin to understand, right? Because sometimes, and I've done this before, I've been blogging since 2008, and I was blogging in the blind. I thought, oh, this is a great topic. And then I would blog and I would just get no traffic, right? And I always wondered why. And it's because I was blogging about things that just people aren't searching for. And you really don't know it until you look at the data that these tools provide you. So Answer the Public is an interesting one because it does talk about the questions that people ask related to something. But I would go with one of these SEO tools that enterprise marketers would use. And I would start with Uber Suggest because it's very inexpensive. There's another one called Keywords Everywhere that I think like $10 a month. But I would start with something that is based on data, so that at least you have this data-driven approach that says, okay, there are way more people searching for information on LinkedIn compared to Snapchat. So I'm going to blog more about LinkedIn. Or no, like I'm going to do the blue ocean strategy and whatever you decide to do. But you want to base it on data-driven strategy, all the way. Take your emotion out of it. And that's what these tools allow you to do.
Love it. I love it. So sticking with omni-channel, how important, and you said earlier that, if you just want to be on LinkedIn, be on LinkedIn. But how important do you think it is to be on, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, all of them? And is it different content or same content, same message, every platform?
Yeah, great question. So first of all, back in the old days of B2B, just until 2 or 3 years ago, I'd say LinkedIn's going to be your number one platform and Twitter is going to be your number two platform. I don't consider Twitter social media anymore. It's really become political media. And I know where you live. If you're in the United States, you look at the trending topics and your timeline. It's all political stuff. So
Yeah.
I've seen the reach for my own business, marketing related blog posts just decline over time. So now where do you go outside of LinkedIn? I think it comes down to a generational approach, right? So Facebook is where older people are, and not everybody on Facebook is on LinkedIn. We have to understand that as well. Now, people on Facebook don't necessarily want to engage professionally, but it doesn't mean if you push an ad their way, they may not see it. They probably will see it. So it becomes a very, very powerful advertising platform, I believe, in the way that you can target people, what have you. When it comes to millennials, we know that that's where they are. They're on Instagram, right? So from a generational strategy, and if we want to reach the future buyers, right, or if we're trying to reach a younger audience, we have TikTok, as long as we can download it, on our phone, which if you haven't logged in recently, you might not be able to do here in the United States. So I do believe it, LinkedIn by far, Facebook ads, Instagram to engage with a slightly younger audience than Facebook. I do believe as far as the content goes, the messaging, Instagram is pure visual, right? So it's going to be a photo, a group of photos, or a video, whereas on LinkedIn, you can do text. LinkedIn provides you the most formats. You can do a newsletter on LinkedIn. And I have found of all the formats that the newsletter actually seems to get the most impressions today. might be different a month from now. You can do little PDFs. They call them carousel posts on LinkedIn, but little PDF infographics, like a 4 or 6 or 8 page PDF that does pretty well. You can have polls on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn allows you to do a lot of different things that the other platforms don't. When it comes to Instagram, you want to do short form videos, right? Ideally. And in B2B, you can do short form videos. Once again, I tell everybody, if you've never created a short form video for your B2B brand, try to find some B2B companies that are already doing this. Find some role models and you'll figure it out. It's not rocket science, right? New tools, old rules. It's just a new way of describing things. And then with Facebook, reels work well, photos work well, and text work well. So I look at Facebook as a lot of people will republish their Instagram stuff on Facebook. You could take that approach together with the textual things on LinkedIn, you could bring over to Facebook as well. So you don't necessarily need to create 3 different types of content, but just knowing that the culture on Instagram is short form video based and it's a younger culture than, generally speaking, than what you might have on a Facebook and in many aspects LinkedIn. So slightly different take for each platform, but when it comes to the photo video these days, I think it's totally okay to post the same thing on all 3 platforms. I think you can get away with it, and I think you can post the same text on Facebook that you do on LinkedIn. I don't think you need to overcomplicate it.
Amen. Same messaging, different approach.
Yeah, and there will be some people. When I spoke at a national real estate conference, and there were some people, one dude raised his hands like, are you saying that it's a best practice to, have the same message everywhere? Doesn't that go against like best practices? I'm like, dude, like if you're publishing, if you have the bandwidth and you see the ROI of like fine tuning and crafting that message for every different platform every day, then, go for it. But if you don't, if you're not a content creator and you're in sales and you have a pipeline and you have a quota, I don't want you wasting too much time on that. I think you'll be as effective as you need to be by just simplifying it like I suggested.
I agree. And so you're also a fractional CMO, Chief Marketing Officer, and a lot of people globally, in the corporate role, in the corporate world, they understand fractional CMO, fractional CFO now, and it's becoming more popular, especially it came about in the US because it's so expensive to hire someone to be your chief marketing officer. So how does your chief marketing officer, fractional chief marketing officer gig, how does that work for companies?
Yeah, so there's a Japan connection here, which you'll find fascinating. But it began where I started my career in marketing, doing what I call social media marketing strategy consulting. So really working on the strategy, which also included training. But normally the implementation of that was done by the client. So I had one particular client, Japanese company, their US headquarters here in Orange County, California. And they said, Neal, they hired me for the strategy. They said, Neal, we love the strategy, but we really need your help implementing it. Could you say every 2 weeks for half a day, come into our office, help train our junior digital marketing person while we, develop and implement the strategy and report back to the CEO on what you're doing? And I said, awesome, let's do it. Right. So, and that's a client I've had for like 6 years now. So that was, I believe, started back in 2017 or 2018. 2019, I spoke at a conference in Tokyo, Japan, and I was in the back listening to the other speakers. And one guy gets up there and he said, I'm a fractional CMO. And I had never heard the term before, right? This is right before COVID. And he explained what he did. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, I am doing something very, very similar. He was already doing it for multiple companies. I only had this one company I was doing it for at the time. But then COVID hit. And I came out with a book called The Age of Influence about influencer marketing that came out March of 2020. So I had all these new inquiries. Businesses wanted my help with their influencer marketing, and they were okay with remote work over Zoom because it was COVID. So it actually, I believe that COVID helped accelerate this, where people were okay, or businesses were okay hiring this sort of fractional help. So I basically applied this business model of how I've been helping this Japanese company to say, hey, this is how I help companies on a fractional basis. Anything from 1 hour a week, 2 hours, 4 hours, or 8 hours a week is pretty much max, so that I can handle multiple companies at a time. And I am an employee. So the fractional CMO means that I can play a leadership role, report back to the CEO, or play any functional role you want me to have. All the IP you retain because I am going according to your marching orders, right? I'm not setting the agenda here. And it's actually really refreshing because, agencies are often black box, and even consultants like I used to be were often black box. They were project based. This is hourly based, right? So I'm going to do whatever you want me to do. You tell me where you want me to march. You tell me what war you want to throw me at, and I'll be there. And it's an approach that a lot of companies really, really like because they had that control and they could direct me to help, whether it's training or developing strategy or maybe a new initiative, that I would be there to help them and apply my knowledge and expertise to that. So yeah, that's my approach to fractional CMO and how I've been able to expand that, especially, accelerate it with when COVID emerged in 2020.
Yeah, well, I love it because it's also a new set of eyes. It's a new set of eyes that's outside the box. You talk about black box, but it's outside the box. And a lot of the times we don't know what our problem is because we're in the box.
Hey, I just came back from Nagoya, Japan. There was a startup conference there, and they had the former one of the founders of Uber. It was called Uber Cab back in the day. He was CEO at the time when it was called Uber Cab. And he said at Uber, we only hired people that had never worked in transportation industry. So if we're trying to upend that industry, we don't want people who know it. This concept of you're not going to grow unless you bring people that, from outside is a very powerful one. I mean, I'm speaking next month at a multi-family housing conference. And I talked to one of the advisors of the board that invited me to speak. And she says, every year we bring in people that don't know our industry because we want to get a fresh perspective. And definitely a fractional CMO can provide you that fresh perspective, right? And it could be, my short-term contracts are only 3 months. I'm here to serve. And if I serve you well in 3 months and then you're on your own, that's awesome. I've done my job, right? I've graduated and I can move on to greener pastures. So I really enjoy doing it. And I love the variety of the different clients from the different industries as well.
Yeah, I call it cross-pollination, right? You can literally learn so much from different industries that you can incorporate into your own and create similar success. Where do people find you? This has been rocking. You're amazing. And I agree with everything you say.
Thank you. I'm honored. Well, my name is Neal Schaffer. I am the real Neal. So it's Neal Schaffer. So it's nealschaffer.com, Neal Schaffer on the socials, a podcast, your digital marketing coach, Neal Schaffer, and just search Amazon for Neal Schaffer. You'll find my books.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, Neal Schaffer. That's a wrap, folks. Thanks for joining me today. And if you got value from this episode, do me a favor, like, subscribe, and refer a friend. And if you want even more value, go to thesalesmachine.com, click on resources, and there's tons of resources there to increase profits and drive performance in your business. Right on, come on.